The restaurant buzzed with energy, every server gliding between tables with practiced precision, balancing trays and polite smiles. It was the kind of place where the lighting was soft, the cutlery gleamed, and the air smelled faintly of rosemary and wine. Then the door opened, and the mood shifted. In stepped Mr. Barrington, a man whose wealth was matched only by his reputation for making evenings miserable. His tailored suit caught the light, his polished shoes clicked sharply against the marble floor, and his eyes carried the kind of entitlement that made people shrink away. Without even sitting fully, he snapped his fingers for attention. The first waiter approached cautiously, only to be met with an impatient glare. "Too slow," Mr. Barrington muttered, dismissing him with a wave. Moments later, a plate of artfully prepared steak landed in front of him, and he didn't even taste it before sending it back, calling it inedible. The chef's jaw tightened in the open kitchen. Around the room, the other waiters began their silent dance of avoidance, each finding reasons to be busy elsewhere. The regulars knew the drill. When Mr. Barrington arrived, service slowed for him not because of negligence, but because no one wanted to be the target of his cutting remarks. Conversations hushed slightly, forks paused over plates, and all eyes subtly followed the storm in the suit. At the far end of the dining area, Anna, the newest member of the staff, wiped her hands on her crisp white apron. She had heard whispers about this man, warnings from her co-workers to steer clear, to let someone else deal with him. But she didn't flinch. Her gaze followed him for a moment, her expression steady, more curious than intimidated. If there was a storm brewing, she seemed ready to step right into it. Mr. Barrington's voice cut through the restaurant like a clap of thunder. "Where's my service? I'm not here to wait." Heads turned, though no one dared meet his gaze for long. His irritation seemed to radiate, daring someone, anyone, to approach. Most of the staff kept their distance, eyes fixed on tasks that suddenly seemed urgent. From the far corner, Anna straightened her posture and made her way to his table. Her steps were calm, unhurried, and when she arrived, she greeted him with a quiet, steady voice. "Good evening, sir. How may I help you?" He wasted no time testing her. His words were sharp, each sentence laced with condescension. He criticized the lighting, the wait time, the temperature of water that hadn't even been poured yet. He leaned back in his chair, clearly expecting her to stumble over apologies the way the others always had. But Anna didn't flinch. She met his gaze and listened, letting him finish without interruption. Then, with the same composed tone, she said, "I'll make sure you get what you need. But I'll also ask you to speak with respect. We're people, not furniture." The effect was immediate and startling. Conversations froze mid-sentence, glasses hovered halfway to lips, and the soft clinking of cutlery ceased altogether. Every ear seemed tuned to their exchange. Mr. Barrington's eyes narrowed, perhaps in disbelief. No one in this restaurant, maybe no one in years, had addressed him that way. The usual script had been broken. For the first time that evening, the balance of power shifted ever so slightly, and it was clear to everyone watching that Anna was not like the others. Mr. Barrington let out a sharp, dismissive scoff, the kind meant to reassert control. But in that fleeting moment, Anna caught something behind the bravado, a flicker, almost too quick to notice. His eyes, for just a second, seemed tired, heavy, carrying more than simple irritation. It wasn't the look of a man enjoying his own cruelty. It was the look of someone weighed down by something far older and deeper than the moment at hand. She didn't retreat, didn't fill the silence with nervous chatter. Instead, she tilted her head slightly and asked, "Rough day, or rough life?" It caught him off guard. His smirk faltered before settling into something more guarded. He let out a low, bitter laugh. "You wouldn't understand. People don't care about me, they care about my bank account. No one listens unless I'm paying them to." Anna didn't respond with sympathy or flattery. She simply stepped closer, pulling out the chair at the corner of his table. She didn't fully sit, but rested her hands lightly on the back of it, leaning in just enough to bridge the distance. In that moment, she wasn't a server on the clock, she was simply another person, looking at him without judgment. "Maybe," she said softly, "people would listen if they felt you saw them too." Her words lingered between them, quiet but unshakable. Around them, the hum of the restaurant returned, though the space at Mr. Barrington's table felt oddly still. For the first time all evening, his gaze wavered, as if he were unsure how to hold himself when someone looked straight through the armor. Something in Mr. Barrington's shoulders seemed to loosen, the stiffness easing as if a knot had finally begun to unravel. He looked at Anna for a long moment, his voice lower now, almost uncertain. "I may have been out of line," he admitted, the word sounding foreign to his own ears. It wasn't grand or dramatic, just honest. When the meal resumed, it was different. He didn't bark orders or roll his eyes. Instead, he asked Anna about the specials, listened to her recommendations, and even smiled faintly when she made a light-hearted remark. By the time dessert was offered, he didn't just accept, he lingered, chatting with her about her life, her studies, and her dream of one day opening a small cafe where everyone felt welcome. The sharp edges he'd worn in withered away, replaced by something gentler. The staff, cautiously glancing over, exchanged surprised looks. It wasn't just that he was behaving, it was that he seemed human. When he finally stood to leave, he shook Anna's hand and offered a small nod to the other waiters. At the hostess stand, he placed an envelope on the counter without a word. It wasn't opened until after he left, but when it was, the room stilled. Inside was a sum so generous it nearly covered a month's wages for the entire staff, along with a handwritten note. "For the people who make this place warm. Thank you for your patience with me." The waiters stared at each other, stunned, not only by the money, but by the man who had walked out the door. This wasn't the same Mr. Barrington who had stormed in earlier. Something had shifted, and they all knew exactly who had sparked it. In the weeks that followed, the atmosphere in the restaurant subtly changed. Mr. Barrington still came in, but now his arrival didn't cast a shadow over the dining room. It brought a sense of curiosity and even warmth. He greeted the staff by name, asked after their families, and occasionally shared small stories from his own life. The once feared storm had settled into something closer to a steady, gentle rain. Anna kept working her shifts, moving between tables with her usual quiet confidence. Among the staff, her name carried a new weight. They spoke of her not with loud praise, but with the kind of respect reserved for those who'd done something rare, changed someone's heart without demanding credit. One quiet evening, as the last customers drifted out and the clink of dishes filled the air, a young, nervous waiter lingered by her side as she wiped down a table. He hesitated before asking, "How did you do it? How did you change him?" Anna paused, a faint smile tugging at her lips. She set down the cloth, meeting his eyes with the same calm steadiness she had shown Mr. Barrington weeks before. "People aren't born rude," she said softly. "Sometimes, they're just waiting for someone to remind them how to be kind again." The word seemed to settle in the air, gentle but unshakable. In that moment, the restaurant felt warmer, as if her belief had spread to the walls themselves. Somewhere beyond the windows, the night deepened, but inside, the lingering truth glowed quietly. Kindness, once awakened, had a way of staying alive. In the end, the story of Anna and Mr. Barrington became more than a single night in a crowded restaurant, it became a quiet testament to the power of dignity and compassion. Anna hadn't set out to change anyone, she had simply chosen to stand her ground with respect, to see the person behind the mask of arrogance. In doing so, she reminded everyone, staff, patrons, and even Mr. Barrington himself, that kindness often begins with courage. What unfolded was not just the transformation of one difficult customer, but a ripple effect that softened the air in that place for weeks to come. It was proof that no amount of wealth or status outweighs the value of being seen, heard, and treated as human. And sometimes, all it takes to break through years of bitterness is one person willing to look past the storm and speak to the soul.